The coalition is back together and looking to the future, not the past.
It's been just over 2 weeks since the Liberal and National parties' dramatic split, and now the coalition is back together.
We did have differences, David and I, in our party rooms. We've resolved those differences.
Sussan Lee and David Littleproud insist they're now solid, guaranteeing that after 2 coalition splits in the space of a year, this time there'll be no more breakups.
We've strengthened our processes and we're going forward as a united coalition to take the fight up to Labor on behalf of millions of Australians who are cheering us on.
I'm Nicole Johnston and you're listening to 7am. Today, Press Gallery journalist Karen Middleton on how the coalition got back together after their big blow-up and whether this time it's for good. It's Monday, February 9. Karen, it was pretty short-lived as far as breakups go, just over 2 weeks. They're now back together. How did we get here, and could you tell us what happened?
Well, how we got here is a long and winding road, Nicole. This is the second breakup and the second reconciliation in 9 months, and we're supposed to believe that all is forgiven and everything is fine now. It's happy families again, and they'll be working for the Australian people, and the Australian people can rely on that. I think we might need a little more evidence than that, to be honest, after the ructions of the last 9 months. Where we got to, I guess, was we saw the most recent bust-up 3 weeks ago now when the government brought the new hate speech laws into the parliament. The Nationals insisted there wasn't enough time, and in the end that 3 of their shadow ministers crossed the floor in the Senate and were basically forced to resign from the shadow ministry, as is the convention. That's where the fun began. They said they shouldn't be forced to resign or shouldn't be sacked, and all the Nationals from the front bench walked out and the coalition collapsed again. So now we're supposed to believe that everything's been sorted out in the last couple of weeks, especially in the last few days, in conversations back and forth. Don't worry about it. We're good now.
And from what you've heard, how tense were these negotiations?
They've become increasingly colourful, according to news reports. I think news.com.au reported, for example, that at one point David Littleproud shouted at Sussan Lee, "Resign, resign, resign." And then the 9 papers have suggested that in response, Sussan Lee said, "Well, you've given me an assessment of my leadership. Let me give you an assessment of yours." So, no love lost, really, at a personal level between the two of them. And yet somehow we have reached this mutually beneficial, it seems, agreement, and everyone's meant to believe it's going to be fine. You can tell probably by my tone that I'm struggling to be convinced.
So in terms of this agreement, though, what's in it? What have they actually come up with?
Well, they've agreed that the 3 Nationals frontbenchers will only be suspended from the shadow ministry for 6 weeks. Originally it was going to be 6 months, but really under the convention that has existed since they were in coalition, it should be they're out. So they've negotiated and horse traded on that and got to a 6-week deal. That means that all the Nationals shadow ministers will become shadow ministers again as of the 1st of March, and that means that the acting arrangements that Sussan Lee has put in place with her Liberal front bench will end on that date. There are a couple of other provisions, such as the shadow ministers will be required to sign an agreement adhering to shadow cabinet solidarity. That's supposed to make sure that this kind of a breach of the party position doesn't happen again, and that neither party is able to override the other. And they're going to have a sort of a note-taking or minute-taking arrangement in shadow cabinet to take note formally of decisions made. And I guess that's so that nobody can come back later and say, hang on, we didn't agree to that. So that's what they're calling a strengthening of processes.
So at the end of the day, who do you think got the better deal?
Well, that's the interesting question, isn't it? I think they've both reached a deal because it suited them to do that more than staying apart. I'm not really sure what the Nationals achieved by walking out the way they did. Their people are still being suspended, albeit for a shorter time. They're now being forced to sign up to arrangements on shadow cabinet where the shadow cabinet arrangements were more loose before. So I don't know what they've gained by that. Sussan Lee, I guess, has gained the restoration of the coalition, which was something that senior Liberals were calling for, the likes of John Howard, for example, former Prime Minister, saying, we need the coalition back together. Mind you, there were some other senior Liberals in recent days saying maybe we need some time apart, maybe this is one too many tantrums from the Nationals, and it's time we stood back and worked out what we actually believe in.
So David Littleproud said he could guarantee there'd be no more breakups.
It looked ugly, but we've had the courage to come back and say we're going to make sure it never happens again.
Is that realistic, given the personal differences here? Because it's only just been over 2 weeks since they resigned.
Our party room has made it very clear we cannot be part of a shadow ministry under Sussan Lee.
What's changed since then?
Well, this is the credibility problem that David Littleproud in particular faces. He has made a lot of strong statements, particularly the one you just cited. The coalition could not reform under Sussan Lee. Apparently now that's all changed because they've had some face-to-face conversations and they've looked each other in the eye and they've got each other's measure, and he absolutely trusts the Liberal Party and the leader of the Liberal Party now. Well, I just think it stretches credibility, and I think the Australian people, those who pay any attention to this at all, will be saying, hang on a minute, like 1 minute you're saying one thing and another minute you're saying another thing. How did we get this all patched up so quickly? And isn't this really just a matter of expediency for both of you? I think they've lost a huge amount of credibility all round from these shenanigans, and I struggle to believe that this will be the end of it.
What was your response, or what did you think when you heard both of them say in the press conference, I trust him, I trust the party?
Yes, 100% I trust David. And
I wouldn't be standing here today if I didn't trust Sussan Lee and I didn't trust the Liberal Party.
How did you find that vibe?
Well, I just don't believe it. It's a statement of convenience. How can Sussan Lee trust someone who's walked out on her twice and then come back saying all is forgiven twice, and just 3 weeks ago said can't be part of anything that she leads, and has given off contemptuous vibes about her? He does not behave like he likes her or that he respects her. There's an awful lot of discomfort all round in the Liberal Party and in some parts of the Nationals about the way he refers to her and behaves towards her. He uses the word respect all the time, but the way he is when he talks about her does not give off that indication. So I think we will see how it goes, but if I were her, I'd be a bit wary. And if I was him, I'd be thinking, will she be here? And do I want her to be here? Well, that's a question only David Littleproud can answer for himself. But you've got to wonder whether he's thinking a few steps ahead and planning for another Liberal Party partner.
Coming up, can Lee stay in power? Karen, there had been this speculation that Angus Taylor could challenge Sussan Lee for the leadership this week. So what does this development mean for her position? And does it keep the Sharks from circling for now?
Well, that's the question. And the suggestion has been that she was motivated to do this deal because she risked Angus Taylor quitting the front bench if she didn't, and then bringing on a challenge this week. Now, has this stopped that from occurring? Maybe. Maybe it's delayed things. Maybe it hasn't. You could argue, had she held out and told David Littleproud no, she wasn't going to reform the coalition, and reallocated those Nationals front bench seats to Liberals, then she would have half a dozen or so more Liberals beholden to her for a front bench position, and Angus Taylor would be in the position of having to decide, well, if he challenges, is he offering those people those positions again, or is he going to pull them back and try and reform the coalition? And so that means there would have been a half dozen Liberals or so who owed their front bench positions to Sussan Lee. Now, you know, that's just a counter narrative. It just tells you there are a number of different ways of looking at things. And I don't know that you can be certain that this move in reforming the coalition at this time in this way has stopped any chance of a challenge to her leadership.
If we could broaden it out a bit to the Albanese government, they've had this brief reprieve with the coalition in crisis. Will they now have to watch their backs again? Or will they be looking to find a way to try and exploit any cracks?
Oh, I think all political parties are looking to exploit cracks in other political parties. They need to make sure they don't overplay their hand, though. They couldn't help themselves with a few funny one-liners in Parliament last week just drawing attention to the shambles on the other side. But I don't think they'd want to keep doing that for too much longer because they're the ones in charge and they need to focus on the economy and improving things around the country. So I think a little bit of leeway to have a joke at the expense of the other side, but if you keep doing it, your own credibility starts to be questioned because you've got a big job to do and you should focus on that. So I don't know that they're going to be pushing things much further, but you can't blame them really, and you can't be surprised that a political party might have a crack when their opponents are in such a mess.
So, Karen, from everything you've said, it sounds like you think that the credibility of the Liberal and National parties has been shot. How do they go about rebuilding from here?
Well, that's the big question. Can they really get along when they said they couldn't and they demonstrated that they couldn't? And all their interactions, to Blind Freddie suggested that they couldn't. Now, apparently they can. Well, the problem with proving that something's not happening is that it's quite difficult to do. And we'll see if they can find a way to demonstrate that they are unified, that doesn't involve a leadership ballot in either the Liberal or the National Party.
Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Nicole.
Also in the news, police will be given the powers to seize and destroy illegally modified e-bikes after the New South Wales government announced a crackdown. Any bikes able to exceed the 25km/h speed limit will be crushed. It comes after a group of 40 young riders swarmed the Sydney Harbour Bridge last week performing stunts. And Queensland is set to outlaw the phrases "from the river to the sea" and globalise the intifada under new laws designed to tackle anti-Semitism and hate speech. There will also be tougher penalties on the use of symbols such as swastikas, the Hamas and Islamic State flags, and the Hezbollah emblem. The crackdown includes penalties of up to 7 years jail for intimidation and willful damage at places of worship. I'm Nicole Johnston. This is 7am. I'll be back tomorrow.